this rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Get It Right Texoma with the trio, Mike Hendren, Terry McAdams, Trey Serralo. Glad to have you back here with us. Thank you for joining us on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast or however you get our show. There's a number of ways you can stream it. Thank you for doing that. It's brought to you in part by Eddie Hills Fun Cycles at 401 North Scott, downtown Wichita Falls since 1966, online at eddiehillsfuncycles.com. MacTech Solutions at 4020 Ray Road, Suite 3B, mactech-solutions.com. We are recording this podcast in the MacTech Solutions studios. Also brought to you by Lollie and Pop Sweet Shop, lpsweet.com, the website, and also on Facebook. And you'll want to stay tuned. We have a sampling coming up in the next episode here coming up.
Cookies.
It's coming on the way. Oh, we got more than cookies this time.
Oh, pie.
Yeah. So, anyway, how you guys doing this morning? Good?
Good.
Right.
It's trying. This week has been a little bit of a break from the rain, but it looks like it's coming back.
Yeah.
We've had a weird weekend rain thing. It's been raining almost every weekend for the last month and a half or so.
Well, what's maybe even a bit stranger is the temperature. We're in the 70s right now. Here we are. It's May the 9th, and we're in the 70s. And I can remember in some years past when we were approaching triple digits by this time.
Yeah, but yesterday it was close to 90, though.
Yeah, it was.
Yesterday evening I had to go unload some wood, and last night, or not last night, but yesterday evening the sun was still up, and it was hot. Unloading
some wood, getting ready for that next Blue Norther, are you?
No, emptying the back of the pickup.
Oh, anyway, we got a few little things to talk about right now. May 17th and 18th and June 7th and 8th, Marath Orchard Dinner, their farm to table tour. Now, Terry and his wife have attended this in the past, more than once. It's really kind of a cool thing. This all happens in Charlie, Texas. For those of you that don't live around here, it's a little community. 30 minutes or so east of us in Clay County. And it's you were saying this thing sells out.
It's over there by Byers and Thornberry.
Yeah,
right. If you don't know where Charlie is, it's right over by Byers and Thornberry.
So it's almost straight north of my house, which is in near Jolly, between Jolly and Dean, and you go straight north.
Oh yeah, by Dean as well. Yeah. Everybody, people that are outside of the Texoma area go, what the hell are they talking about?
What's a Dean?
Yeah. Charlie, Dean,
yeah.
Jolly. There's a place called Jolly.
Cashin community. All these weird little towns. But anyway.
But this thing sells out quick.
Yes, right? It does. I mean, my wife, when she gets on there, she has to get up at 7 on Saturday morning or some morning when they announce or they put out the dates. They do it on oh gosh darn it, it's a scheduling website, Eventbrite, and you go down there and look for it. And so, but it sells out very quickly. Yep. Occasionally they'll have cancellations and but you got to communicate with them. But it's May 17th and 18th, and then June 7th and 8th. It's a couple of weekends. They do this pretty much in the spring and in the fall. Yeah. And you just you got to sign in and everything. But the food is amazing. I guess it's Jessica. I forget her last name. And her family, and put that thing together.
It's the Marath family orchard.
Right, the Marath.
Yeah. There's the Marath family has had an orchard in that part of the country for I don't know how many years, going back for generations.
Time,
Right,
and so they do this farm to table, and there's different Marath groups. They're all related,
right?
But there's also some Maraths out of I believe out of Archer County, as well, and they set up sometimes at Scotland and have like a little farm, farmers market of their own.
Well, they're at the farmers.
But the other Maraths, they set up a farmers market in Scotland, Texas, on Sundays sometimes as well. So there's Maraths all over, and they're all agricultural people, and they're all really good folks.
Oh yeah. Well, this thing is right there. There's this pink and white striped building that's, and then their farm, their family, their house, and everything's right there. And they have more than just orchards. I mean, they grow blackberries, they grow tomatoes, they grow, all kinds of things in there. But anyway, most everything. I mean, unless it's with a minor exception, it is grown on that farm or locally. Yeah. And then but they have. I've had my very first time. I was skeptical, and what did they do? They had my favorite food, which is my favorite dish is brisket. And it was amazing. Right. And then they chicken, and they've got, I mean, oh my gosh, it's all, I've never been disappointed on every one of them. There hasn't been anything that I didn't like.
It's really local, really fresh.
That's right. So I encourage you, if you can get your tickets or get somebody to buy them for you or whatever, I encourage you to go.
Or pay attention. Pay attention for the next time around. You said they do this in the spring and the fall.
Yeah, right.
By the way, if you ever get a chance, and it's coming up pretty nice outside, and you want to get out on a nice Sunday drive, going out there and driving from Wichita Falls to Byers,
if you're in the
Wichita Falls area, up the Upper Charlie Road out there, it's a beautiful drive. It's a kind of a curvy drive. There's a lot of scenery. There's some elevation changes. It's not mountains or hills, but there's some elevation changes. You cross the river a couple of times. It's just a neat little drive out there.
Well, and that's also the place where they do they have a pumpkin patch maze that they do during Halloween. Yeah, and so that's the last time we were there, is they had this going on at the same time and everything. So it's an amazing family, hardworking family, and they put this on. They enjoy it. Actually putting it on, they host it. It's just like a family dinner. It's one big table. They serve you, and it's really fun. So Mike and I are going.
Yeah, cool. That sounds like a good
as
time.
Dates. No, with our dates, our wives are going to go.
I was going to say, you said dates. I was going to clarify. I hope it's your wives and not your girlfriends.
Well, this time, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. But yeah, we're going to go on, I think it's the June 8th one is what we're going on.
I believe that's right, yeah.
But anyway, my wife had to get up early for that. So I'm telling you, she almost didn't get them. We were trying for the May one, but that didn't work out because they sell out. I'm telling you, they sell out very quickly.
Keep an eye out for it.
Yes.
All right, there we go.
Open Wichita Falls Ballet Theatre presents A Midsummer Night's Dream, May 17th from 7 to 10 and 18th from 1 to 3. Of course, Wichita Falls Ballet Theatre, I guess you would call them a professional performance troupe, would you not? I mean,
and I don't know if this is everybody local or if they bring people in for this.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I really don't know for sure, but it's a classic. They always put on good performances.
They do.
They bring. It's a high. It's not the three of us could put on a ballet, type thing. It is very.
You don't want to see any of us in tights.
No, I'm not even talking about if we were dressing up. I'm talking about if we were just going to put it on.
No,
it's put on the right way. It's people who are into that world, the ballet world, and know how to put that stuff on. So whether they bring talent in or have local talent, however they do it, they always have a really good show. And so if you need a little culture in your life, the ballet.
I've watched how they dance, and I feel like I probably would get a cramp about 30 seconds into it.
I've gotten a cramp watching them.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts.
Yeah.
The Wichita County Mounted Patrol Rodeo is coming up May 31 and June 1. And this is at the Wichita County Mounted Patrol Arena, which is on Arena Road / FM 369 here in Wichita Falls. And this has been I don't know how long the Mounted Patrol Arena has been around, as long as I can remember.
Oh, yeah, a long time.
Probably at least 60 or 70 years or more.
I've actually ridden in the Grand Entry a lot of times, and I junior rodeoed there too.
Yeah.
Well, I've been pitched there. I've hit the ground there a couple times.
You got throwed once or twice there?
Yes.
And, they used to do, years ago, they would do the Red River Rodeo.
Right.
And they would have this huge parade downtown that was always like the Wednesday before the weekend rodeo, but it was always on like a Wednesday or a Wednesday or Thursday. I think it was pretty sure it was a Wednesday.
I think it was Wednesday, yeah.
And it was always so hot when they would do it. It's like the thermostat got cranked up about 20 degrees on the day of the rodeo parade. It's like, I never understood that. It's like, why? But anyway.
Well, there's going to be a lot of stuff on. They're going to have a rodeo queen competition.
Yeah.
They're going to have a calf scramble. By the way, calf scrambles are great.
Oh, they are.
If you've never been to first off, if you've never been to a rodeo, take the time to go. I mean, this is a great one to go, but all summer long, if you live in Texoma, there's rodeos. Just about every little town around here has its own rodeo.
And they're all good.
And they're all fun to watch. But the calf scramble, and by the way, if you want a little piece of Americana, as well, where people stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and sing the national anthem.
That's right.
And there's an invocation and all that. I mean, all of that is incorporated in the rodeo. But the calf scrambles are great. Basically, they put a ribbon on a calf, and they turn the kids loose out there, and whoever pulls a ribbon off the back end of a calf on the calf's tail wins a prize. And it is so fun watching these kids run over each other and trying to get a hold of these calves. They'll put a calf out. They put a bunch of calves out, and one or two of them have ribbons on them. But they're a lot of fun.
Yep.
But they're going to have all the traditional rodeo events are going to have youth barrel racing and breakaway roping, which breakaway roping is where the tradition is where you see where they rope, they get off, they throw the calf, they hog tie it, they throw their hands up in the air. Breakaway is where you rope it, and when the calf gets out, it breaks away. The rope breaks away. So it's a timed event. But the nice thing about it is all the proceeds go towards 20 local scholarships, and also the Mountain Patrol gives 4-H and FFA.
Yeah.
And 10 to 20% also go to area volunteer fire departments. So it's,
awesome.
Yeah, it's a whole event. It's all for a good cause. The price is for the rodeo is $15 for Friday night, $25 on Saturday night, and on Friday night and by the way, there's always music after the rodeo. Local musician Tony Myers is slated to perform. And on Saturday, one of the coolest names of any musical group, Mickey and the Motor Cars.
Yeah.
Mickey and the Motor Cars.
I don't know if they're worth a crap or not, but I like their name.
It's going to be a good show.
Motor car is an old term. You don't hear people use that term motor car very often. And it's kind of like it's the same term as foot feed. It's about that same area. Mm-hmm. The reason the word foot feed is that's the throttle on a car, because on tractors it's a hand feed. Yeah. You set on tractors traditionally you set your throttle by hand, and on a car you don't. In the old cars you set throttle by hand like the old stuff, but then you went to where you had the accelerator pedal is what we call it. But you hear a lot of old timers call it the foot feed, and if you hear somebody use the word foot feed, chances are they've driven a tractor a lot, or they drove like an old Model A or something a long time.
I had an uncle that used to call it that all the time.
Yeah, foot feed.
It was foot feed, of course, but I'm sure that's because his dad called it that.
Yeah,
probably. But yeah, my uncle had a, I guess it was a Model T, one you had to crank in the front. You had to start it.
There were several of those. Yeah,
crank starter, and so he tells me to get in. He said, open up the fuel and push the spark up.
Put the spark on, yeah.
And so I did, and he gets out there and goes to crank that thing, and it got loose from him and spun around and hit his arm. Oh. And how it did not break his arm, I don't know, but I know he had a bruise that big across his arm for 2 weeks, where that thing spun around and hit him. Those things were dangerous.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of people killed. The electric starter was invented by someone who lost a friend starting a car accident.
Wow.
There were some of the original automobile accidents that ended up with death were starting the vehicle. I mean, because the early days of automobiles, I don't know how they would have had very many deaths driving them, because when you go 20 miles an hour, even if you hit something, unless you fall off and hit the ground, but if you just bump into something at 20 miles an hour, it could hurt. But chances of you dying in an impact at that slow are pretty low. But yeah, there are a number of people that got killed starting the vehicle, and the inventor of the electric starter invented it because of that reason. Well, that was the motivation.
Well, keep in mind during that time too, as airplanes became more prevalent, that they had to start those by rotating the propeller,
spin the propeller,
and they had and when I was studying becoming a pilot back in high school, I was reading all about it and everything, and they have a procedure that's you're supposed to hold it with your foot. You stand there and you put one foot up, and then you there's a certain way so that you're not as likely to get hit by the.
Yeah, and also I've seen, and I don't know why. I don't know enough about rotary engines, but it's like they cock it back and then spin it as well. Right, yeah. So I don't know if you're timing it. I don't know what the reason you're doing it while you're doing it. But I've never seen them just walk up and spin it. You always see them go up and then they put it up, get it, and then set it and pull it down.
My favorite one is the one where they use a shotgun shell to start.
Yeah, those, yes. Yeah. There was a number of planes that had that for years back. They were kind of World War I or World War II era, probably some of the early World War II eras.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, the B-52, now I'm thinking the G model also, or the H model, that's the current model that's actually still in service since the 60s. Now, they were in the 50s, but the H model, I think, they were all made in the 60s. But when they're on alert, when they're on, back in the day when they were on nuclear alert, they're sitting there ready to go, and at a moment's notice, they have to be able to be in that airplane in 5 minutes, be taxiing and about to launch. And they would use starter cartridges, which were gunpowder. And they would go in there, and you'd see all this smoke just going because it's just to spin the first engine to get rotation in order to get it started. So that's,
Wow.
Yeah. They usually use bleed air. Or some other way, but the cartridge start is what that
was kind of the fast way to start it.
Yep.
And by the way, so they were under nuclear, except for when George Bush was the president, then they were under nuclear.
Nuclear, that's it. So,
nuclear
what? Yeah.
Gosh.
So there you go.
We're going to do that now, are we? Oh gosh. Well, hey, a couple stories here to talk about. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. This slashed tax rates in almost every bracket. While also
no, the Democrats will tell you that only the rich people got a tax.
Yeah, whatever.
Only the wealthy who don't pay their fair share. By the way,
said that's really going to be a tired old number right there.
Absolutely.
It also decreased the corporate tax rate. It's going to expire in December of 25. So next year, at the end of next year, it's going to expire. If those tax reforms get renewed, is going to depend very largely on who's sitting in the White House.
Yes.
Of course, also who's in
Congress,
and who's in control of Congress as well after the general election coming up in November of this year. Joe Biden has vowed to let those tax cuts expire if he's reelected.
So what that is saying is that even if the Republicans win the House and the Senate, that those tax cuts will expire because they're not going to have a supermajority in either party.
No,
they can't. They're going to have presidential veto override at all. So according to Joe Biden, now of course he says that now, or whoever pulled his puppet string that day, said that. I don't know how true that is, but he's saying right now, as of right now, if those tax cuts come across his desk in 2025 to renew those tax cuts, he will veto.
Which so you got to think about it this way: what are the implications for the economy if those tax cuts are not renewed? If they're allowed to expire, if this doesn't continue, what are the tax implications? What is the economic impact for the nation? And of course, you'll have people on both sides who will argue this both ways. But I will tell you, from a purely economics, and I'm talking economics 101 standpoint, if you want to stimulate the economy, especially when you're in a down market in terms of jobs, interest rates are up, consumer confidence is low, business investment is lower. You want to jumpstart the economy, you got to cut taxes. You got to reduce the burden on the people that are paying the taxes. Period. That's it.
Mike, haven't you been paying attention to Joe Biden and the White House? The economy's roaring right now. It's great.
Oh yeah.
So many jobs have been made. Joe Biden heard Nancy Pelosi look straight to the camera. And this is what pisses me off so much about politicians, and it's not just Democrats. Republicans do it too. Look straight into a camera, and she was actually challenged by like an MSNBC person. Looked straight to the camera and said, Joe Biden has created more jobs. First off, the president doesn't create or eliminate jobs.
No.
Let's get that straight. But Joe Biden has created more jobs than the history of our country. Yeah. And the MSNBC lady looked at her and said, well, yeah, let's be fair though. We were coming out of the COVID where so many jobs were lost. And Nancy Pelosi pushed back and said, if you want to be a champion for Trump, then you go right ahead, but that's not my job. Does facts say he's created more jobs? No. Yes, if you look at it on paper, but we know we're all lying, and everybody knows that. Well, first off, Nancy Pelosi's lying because her mouth is moving. But we know that we're all lying. Of course, when COVID, when the government artificially killed a bunch of jobs,
Yep.
and then the government artificially opens everything back up, and all of a sudden these jobs come back. Well, obviously,
Yeah.
it didn't matter if Mickey Mouse was running the goddamn country. If everything was lost during COVID and then everything opens back up, more people are going to go back to work. That's just reality.
And that's what happened. Is there was the appearance was created that jobs were created. They weren't. You just had jobs coming back. You had people coming back into the workforce.
Yeah, was it new jobs
that had left the workforce because of the pandemic, and this whole thing was a fabricated thing. And the reason our economy, and I heard Pelosi make references to this. Janet Yellen has made references to this. Other people on the political scene on the left have made references to this. That, well, the reason we have such inflation is because, well, Mr. and Mrs. America, you just spent too much money. You just dumped too much money into the economy.
It's your fault.
It's all your fault. Yes, Janet Yellen has made statements alluding to that.
And by the way, where'd you get that money?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to say, wait a minute, hold on.
The reason we are here today, in whatever economic dire straits, however you want to describe this, the reason we are here today is they slammed the brakes on the world economy, train wrecking everything, creating shortages in products, creating shortages in inputs of manufacturing. All of this was done because the economy was shut down. People were told, you got to stay home. Remember, 2 weeks to flatten the curve? Yeah, that worked out well. And then what does our government do? And other governments around the world did it too, but speaking about our country here, our government then goes to work printing money. We pumped trillions of dollars into the economy by way of sending what I call mailbox money out, money that got directly deposited into people's checking accounts or delivered to their home, but we just set checks out. You cannot in a country, in an economy that has a fiat currency, and that's what our currency is a fiat currency.
And remember, a fiat is a shitty car. Just so when you're naming a currency after a shitty car. In Europe, they call it, fiat stands for fix it again tomorrow or fix it again, Tony.
The whole thing is, when you do this, because our money, it surprises me how many people still think that, there's, trillions of dollars in gold sitting in Fort Knox, and that's what backs all of our money. We haven't been on the gold standard since Richard Nixon was in the White House.
By the way, you used the word Dire Straits earlier. You know what Dire Straits' #1 song was, don't you? Money for Nothing.
Money for Nothing. Yes. Yes.
That's a weird, it's a weird wraparound hit my head there. You said Dire Straits, and then we talked about Money for Nothing, Nate. Yep.
I have to wonder if they didn't write that song with that in mind. Anyway, but seriously, you create this situation by printing trillions of dollars, sending all this money out, with no plan on how to unwind all of this. There was never a plan to unwind any of this. The plan, look, guys, I've said this for a long, long time in broadcasting. I've said to a lot of people, I wonder sometimes how many people have paid attention. The profit's not in the cure, it's in the treatment. You want to keep things flowing for those guys, the politicians, the bureaucrats. They got to keep you sick, scared, and hungry. And as long as they can keep you sick, scared, and hungry, you will be compliant, and you will, whatever they say to do, you'll go, yes, sir, and you'll just jump right in line with it. And that's what everybody did in 2020. Everybody just jumped right in line with it. I'm not suggesting that COVID was faked. I'm not suggesting that at all. No. What I will tell you, though, is that at a minimum, they saw an opportunity to see just how much control can we exert over people, just how far can we push that envelope before people start to push back. Yeah. And they went a long way down that road. Long way down that road.
I think you said that the plan was, well, on one hand, there may be a plan to actually not have a plan, if that makes sense, because if the plan involved actually following and keeping a balanced budget, right? I mean, that's a strategy, right?
Yeah.
That's a strategy. That's part of a plan, a long-term plan, that if we had a balanced budget amendment, that we could, that kind of stuff, if we followed the Constitution, which we have questions about whether they do that today or not.
Like in Texas, you have to have a balanced budget. You don't go home.
Right.
Exactly.
They don't go home.
Right. We have a balanced budget amendment in our Constitution. It is a legal. It is a codified requirement in Texas.
You legally, if people go, if the Congress goes down there and then they try to leave, they technically the governor can hold them there.
Yeah, or
you
quit
quit
them in jail.
I guess
or
you quit.
Go collect them. Yeah.
You quit. I mean, if you resign, nobody can. It's not slavery.
Right.
But you could quit. But if you want to hold your job, you have to.
You're going to do it.
But when the guys left for Oklahoma that one time, did they were subject to? They went to Oklahoma because they were subject to be collected up and returned to Austin.
Well, the Texas Rangers were going to pick them up and bring them back. If they had to bring them back in handcuffs, they were going to bring them back.
Right.
You know?
And so, my back to my point is that you have no plan. If you have a plan to have no plan, then you can just do whatever you want at any time and just react and not really look at it strategically, because clearly there were winning points. They were trying to get and admittedly, though, on one hand, I think that there was something to be said about it. If you're going to shut the economy down, then you're going to have to. There should be some sort of remuneration for that, but that shouldn't have ever happened to begin with.
Well, they're going to tell you.
Well, here's the thing, and by the way, it's Republicans and Democrats. The Republicans are not off the hook on this.
Oh, no.
Trump is not off the hook on this.
No.
Trump was the original one that sent mailbox money.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Not just Trump.
Right.
It was Congress, but with his support.
Right.
Yes.
Well, yeah, because they were all on the same page. All Republicans, Democrats.
So they're all to blame.
Exactly. It's politicians.
But let's go back to before the Kung Flu came, okay? The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, what it had stimulated the economy. The economy was roaring in 2018 and 2019.
Yes, it was.
And the economy, early 2020, the economy was roaring. Mm-hmm. It came to a screeching halt because of the pandemic, okay? But this act was working. It was doing what it was supposed to do.
Yes.
It was encouraging. We were bringing cash back in. We had large corporations that have parked millions and millions of dollars in cash offshore because they were worried about being taxed to death on it. They started bringing that money back. They started infusing it into the economy. The economy was roaring and the economy was good. So this would be a huge mistake if, for some reason, Joe Biden backs into the presidency again. Jesus Christ. If he does, and vetoes this would be a huge mistake. So you need to say. By the way, part of this is, yes, we need to care who's the president, but we really need to care who's in the Congress.
We do. Both are important. Congress
is more important. Actually, I would rather have if you said you can have either or. You can have a Democrat president and a Republican Congress, or a Democrat Congress and a Republican president. I'd rather have a Republican Congress. Both hot parties.
Yeah. Well, real quick here to this end, okay? A couple of stories here. We're going back now to January of 2021. So we're still in the COVID era here. Global debt grew by $19.5 trillion during the pandemic. Now, that's a story from Bloomberg. Then we jump to CNN, August of 21. So August of the same year. U.S. household debt soared to nearly $15 trillion the previous quarter. So basically Q2 of 21 soared by nearly $15 trillion. If I'm not mistaken, we added somewhere between 6 and 8 trillion to the national debt. Trillion. Now, if you're in our age group, you're 50 plus. You remember growing up in the 80s, and you heard on the news constantly. It was if it wasn't the lead story, it was a story almost daily in the 1970s and 80s? The national debt.
Oh, yeah.
What are we going to do about the nation's debt? What are we going to do? It was a headline every dadgum day.
And by the way, you didn't hear about Congress spending trillions or billions. You heard about them spending millions.
Millions, or you might
occasionally a billion. You didn't hear about them spending billions.
We would talk about $1 billion in terms of military spending or whatever, but it was a constant presence in the headlines. What are we going to do about the national debt? How often does anybody hear about this now?
No.
How many people in this country do you think under the age of 35 or 40 are even cognizant? Our national debt has swollen to nearly $34 trillion. That's the on-the-book stuff. When you factor in all the off-the-books, unfunded entitlements, all the stuff that's coming up down the pipe, when you add all that up, folks, we're talking, I think the last number I saw was close to $124 trillion.
Yeah.
It's probably grown since then.
Yeah. It's one of those deals where
it's crazy.
Things are going to have to change.
Things have to change.
Part of it, I've been saying all along, ever since this pandemic, everybody in the world should go to China and say, guess what? Now we've nationalized everything. Nobody owes you money anything.
Yeah, we don't owe you
now, I'm not talking about Chinese people.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Chinese government. If the Chinese government owns anything, then nobody's paying you back.
Nope.
And if you own any land, then now it becomes it's ours. It's the United States.
We're taking it.
There we go.
Yeah.
So,
all right. We're gonna wrap this one up here, guys.
Up.
Thank you so much for joining us for Get It Right Texoma. We appreciate it. You being with us for this episode. And again, it's brought to you in part by Lollie and Pop Sweet Shop, lpsweet.com, the website on Facebook as well, Lollie and Pop Sweet Shop. MacTech Solutions, 4020 Ray Road, here in Wichita Falls, Suite 3B, and we are recording, of course, in the MacTech Solutions studio, mactech-solutions.com, and Eddie Hills Fun Cycles at 401 North Scott, downtown Wichita Falls, eddiehillsfuncycles.com.
For all your power sports needs.
Got that right. Anyway, y'all take care. We will see you down the road, folks.